Hello, Americans. The sources of the news, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non distinctly, that have recorded organized crime acts and methods, natures of organized crime, totally distinct too, to hide behind and through that. A breaching method kept and keeps that the outcome slash S. They have their roles with celebrities and actors. And then, like, for example, the pretending it's debatable what they say and think in their roles with the No Kings theme. One can't be, in other words, they're measuring and maintaining self-value collusion slash S at campuses A through Z, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too, replacing what our founders communicated to communicate. There was a breaching method entrenched in the northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13, even roles with slavery it only permitted. And then America's founders were born. There was slavery, and they wanted nothing to do with it. They have our founders framed through our schools. Then they have these fake punks. Well, I think about the voting. They're giving voting offensively. They're pretending voting means what it doesn't. They're pretending they don't realize they're replacing what our founders communicated about what their major caused the American Revolution. And they really don't realize it because they replaced, even though it's declassified. James Madison's plan forced everyone to be part of the get behind the Declaration of Independence and the American Revolution and the Constitutional Convention and the plan that led to the Civil War. We're supposed to explain how both the North and the South, sickly distinctly, but also non-distinctly, were forced to collusions with a whole bunch of things at the same time they didn't want. Specifically, so if they would bring up the subjects, their interest by others with other sick things, because that was only allowed for them to be. Otherwise, they were only allowed to sense anybody doing other, including if it was a majority of people, including if it was everyone. The breaching method, James Madison declassified. They knew everyone was going to come out of those things, but they knew they would come out of it, and they'd be natures of unity, natures of independence. They can't defend that. And afford to be, let alone to protract the syntax of anyone necessary to overcome. The breaching methods rolls with everyone's syntax. The breaching methods rolls with a bunch of fakes pretending to be able to rule the law while there is witch trials place next to Webb House, for example, the Webb Stevens Museum. It's now renamed. And then and now, just like across the country, they have other communicated for the founding locations that our founders left to be communicated for the founding locations and for themselves. And the only ones we know the name of, the only one we know the name of is James Madison. They also left it classified why and how. They only had the security to let us know James Madison's name. Everyone else was counter extorted. We're supposed to understand it wasn't the counter kings because they still had roles. You don't vote on slavery, by the way, if you're defending the Constitution unabridged. Oh, it's debatable. If you're pretending that's debatable, you're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong, but also screening the breaching of the because it was a hyper foreign, so to speak, that which had sickly non-distinctly too. Northern colonies and southern colonies roles with things they didn't want. But rather than counter what's non-distinctly against everyone, everyone had roles forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading other things, others themselves to be blamed. Because the breaching method knew they would. It showed you guys how to speak for integrity, how to act. In other words, you guys can't afford people. In other words, get them on paper, one name in sequence. And they brought this up, the same little fake punks, in other words. Then they lie. They're sequence shifting on a mass scale. They made people call them names to interbranch. Then they punish them by making them come back to courts. And every time they're doing it, they're putting fake things in databases. They're putting collusion slash us with crime scenes originally and still. You guys better learn predicate acts with facts. I'm not even a lawyer. We're going to learn together because nature shows us they can't speak for the law. You can't speak for America. They're used to measure and maintain self-value collusion slash S with their passions and emotions behind what's caused the American Revolution, all tactical terror from what our founders left us to appreciate about what really caused the American Revolution. You guys won't even allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington like he asked you guys to be. it would have brought up James Madison's plan. That's really why and how he had to go to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum, and counter-extort. They had to leave slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. That's very critical to understand. You guys have things pretended debatable that are not, and it's gotten away with because the people attacking the campuses and the people defending them have collusion/S too. It's like a shell game where they have a remote control where, in other words, like one party's right, in other words, but they're inside the shells and they're switching the ball over. Because they never want modern countries A through Z to get it right. A breaching method measures and maintains them confessing to itself that they have self-value, collusion/S, forcing, tricking, hurting, and persuading others or selves to be blamed for things that nature itself was and is demonstrating to blame on the breaching method. And our founders did too. Where our founders communicated for us to blame it on the breaching method and how they did, that's pretended debatable and gotten away with relative to criminally foreign influence, fact, true nature, quality, aspects, and nature, and syntax inside the school book depository associated with the murder, the assassination, and the reports on the assassination of President/Chief Kennedy. And note that /Chief part, which is also part cipher. Our founders left us declassified things as demonstrations, as communications, that they had to leave things in cipher too, because they knew the breaching method would read and appreciate what they left to us, communicated before we did. And they measure it, they're still measuring and maintaining it. Now they're closing on it. So we stop it now, we understand it together. It's that simple. James Madison is what caused the Declaration of Independence. Everyone who said other, you're going to watch, because their calmness and their aggression is fake, their passions. Because there's mass behavior, racketeering, worse than war crimes associated with the names of the people of the sciences, including of the law. Right through world wars, psychiatry was criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought too. Collusion/S with these networks, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and wire crime acts and methods. The people that answer the phones, the people that do the digital, they're changing, faking, hiding, and obfuscating what's actually digitally recorded. And other ways too. They have the departments of the campuses individually grouped in together, criminally foreign influence. Bunch of fake punks only allowed to speak for the different ages differences. Otherwise, they sense us and they put fake things, including the prosecutors, judges, a whole bunch of people tied to them, repeating fake things consciously, putting fake transcripts in their databases, and other campuses tied to, and the campuses tied to the interbranch. All sides of criminal and civil cases, and interbranch and intelligence tied to them, foreign and domestic, as shared. Whole bunch of countries are shared next to Trinity College, with people from Hartford Hospital, with a Violette family, a Leahy family. I never saw a Leahy family on my street, but they faked conversations with me through the mail to other people. I can't get a response from the hospital. They have a bunch of people with their intelligence, foreign and domestic, military, involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts with them. They put fake transcripts and ties to me with the Leahy family. They have a little girl on Facebook with them, with some overt criminal enterprises, private ones, intercities too. And people from Afghanistan, people from Pakistan, people from Korea also involved with this Mike Violet, and their roles with victims advocates, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with the victims that were representing, like some guy that Subby Bajerio stole a speaker box from. Subby Bajerio is involved with proven child abusers, leaders, kids, groups, and families that force that, as his roles with multiple judges and people with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, and all sides of and at the state. I never saw him at the community center, but there are organized crimes, acts, and methods with people at the community center who will quote, confess, demonstrate, confirm that Subby Bajerio. I never saw him on campuses. I never had a class with him. They tried to make it look like other, with the exception I went in a car with them. In other words, like 1 or 2 times. In other words, and that was when I was a junior, I think. I didn't know these people when they were in my grade, and they were with my neighbor. So my neighbor's tied to retired police chiefs and other agencies, foreign and domestic, military, medical. My own family has roles with a person in my own family who worked at a modern pastry, and they're involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with the FBI director, and a whole bunch of people within the Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, and the Connecticut's District Court. Rick C. and Paglione also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed this. I only saw them together once, and that was after he graduated. And they had me stay back, so the lady put fake things in the databases. And with my speech class, she's involved with people from Washington, D.C., and all along Route 175. With her students also as ones collusion/S with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, who also have ties to child abusers, leaders of kids, and confessions and demonstrations they made of their collusion/S all along Route 3, and conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices, and all along Route 175, and conjunctions to it and to that, like Ridge Road and Walker Hill Road, is increasingly involved, like all at the other end of Route 175 at Central Connecticut State University, with names on the side of it, and at Central Connecticut State University, the difference of guilt as ones involved intercities since I was a kid, increasingly planting evidence on all sides of my house, and with the names involved too. They'll tell you. Everyone else, they see they're directed to hide things. Their roles with all these different countries. Israel too. Israel, Palestine, same time, same collusion/S. All sides have with psychiatry and with the military. People tied to Dean Keyes, Dean Judd, Dean Alford, FBI Director Robert Luskin planted evidences with the Predicate Acts, collusion/S with those campuses, and people involved with the body dumping spots and untimely deaths and murders and confessions, including nonverbal confessions of a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, to me in a 2006 district court case. And after, which were verbally confirmations of Thaddeus Grabowski and others, and other co-defendants of his in a 2006 district court case, short-term and long-term before that, at and next to the networks like Fox Connecticut News. Thaddeus Grabowski has collusion/S with Wethersfield Police at that Hartford location, who also faked the conversation with me as a kid and as an adult. And at the police station, I wasn't at all. Like with a Mendez police brother. He's one of the ones with the police forms, intercities, and with the Britain Superior Court, involved with names foreign and domestic, next to Fox Connecticut News, and next to WFSB, and next to WTNH, which is also the FBI. And Yale, and the best campuses like Yale. It's not to knock Yale or UConn, just the psychiatry part of it. A professor of modern languages has a family member, Dr. Shub, his neighbors. I didn't tell him this, but he was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. His neighbors are collusions with people involved with the World Trade Center attack. And before I had him as an educator. And these are increasingly people involved with the same house/S, with extended family members, further with police and switching names and making confessions on my street, and planting evidence on all sides of my house since I was a kid. This is recorded too on Facebook. There's an officer, Jerry Miller, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there's people with the name Kerr planting evidences on the side of my house, pretending I was growing marijuana, as his collusion/S with some sexual and medical offenders of kids years apart, with the Kerr family, and other police that also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that. They also had a sexual circle involved with Mr. Neville, with his placement of me in a summer school class, with people that were involved with putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, me into fake locations with them too, as students and adults at the same time, who are the ones who are increasingly collusions with sexual and medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and with the syntax regarding the word maturity and psychedelics used by a Ray Collo on YouTube. And a Joshua Julian is further on the Facebook page of a principal upskirt nature. He had collusions with him with way worse. Also with Whiting Forensics. Also with a Phil Cololo. A Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics said a Phil Cololo was involved with him with a police report he didn't want to show me. And I still don't have the police report. I know that they're recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed. They put multiple falsified police reports and made confessions about how they switched the officers' names. Then they put a charge with no writing. Intercities with the same people tied to the Wethersfield Police and the Wethersfield Judicial Branch offices for the state and the Wethersfield / Hartford State Corrections offices, the same house / S, and one's tied to them involved with home break-ins too, years apart. Also with the people involved with my middle school teacher I had, not with those people I had in the middle school. They made me take a summer school before I went to the high school, because they're building on Predicate Acts every year. Increasingly, people with mayors and people with medical corruption, interstates and state police intelligence families involved with this Mark Vile. A whole bunch of people tied to him, Mr. Neville, and his roles all along Route 3. His syntax too, he reported, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, repeated. Route 3 is a collusion with him. I don't know what he put in databases. He's making up things, vaccines. But people tied to him are involved with the syntax, with the men and women that are increasingly, since they were kids, has something to do with how they were child abused when they were kids and forced offensively to pretend others. These are not legitimate roles with the FBI directors, plural. They have sequence shifts with James Comey, with the sources of MSNBC. These are sick people being used to sense for the breaching method too. Note this, Americans, when they say no kings, they'll pretend it's debatable. They're being measured and maintained, replacing it sickly distinctly at campuses too, to keep a quality of nature of debate, criminally formidable nature of debate that can't defend itself and afford defenses of ourselves at the syntactic level. Names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, including with Facebook, have the courts, additionally the state office, corrections and judicial offices, but there are other countries' equivalents too, because they have remote uses of that collusion / S too, that they themselves don't understand. The rest of the country's involved in the overt criminal enterprise, the private ones. And people that know my name, I don't know their name. Increasingly, the neighbors of a Spada family and people tied to them with multiple probate court judges involved with 2 Route Highway, with a Sal Civiello and others who sought me out to confess, demonstrate, report, confirm. They have federal evidence of crimes with Whiting Forensics and with state police locations all along the Borough Turnpike before the heart of Hartford and Route 3, and between those two. And conjunction into that, like Route 3 is the state judicial branch of it, but between those two, where Hangdog Lane runs into 2 Route Highway. Increasingly, there are people that went out of their way since I was a kid to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm there were collusions with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences, including online and recorded, including with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts and the interbranch, their family members, their neighbors, the different natures of conjunctions to them. All that at the same time, the news putting the same sequence shifts, the same fake conversation, self-value, force, equality, of fact, treatment nature, criminally foreign influence, criminal insidious natures of positive and negative treatments. Even when they're not at crime scenes, they're even preemptively at all crime scene. This breaching method employed crime scenes. It employed the people that speak on crimes, the names of the people, the sciences, their roles self-valued with predicate acts with facts. So time protracts. Forever nature holds. It shows us there's an extent of the past that we know is only increasing value. There's an extent it's hyper invisible but still discernible. There's an extent of the future that we know. It's hyper invisible but still discernible. The only rhyme. I'm going to talk about Judge Napolitano, if you could get in contact with him. And the names you brought up of the officers involved with the principle being the upskirt nature principle. There were other ones years before that involved. Why would you pretend games like that with serious things like that? I'm one of the people that was next to the World Trade Center towers the morning before the attack, the morning of the attack. I was in the court right next to it, right before the attack, the Ninth Circuit Court, as an observer. Names on both sides of that case, their sources, their family members, and the court itself was forced to collusion/S with proven afterward from inside the court. There had been a sequence shift. They post-dated things from inside the court to make them look as if they were legal papers handed in late. So the court itself and both sides of cases in the news had collusion/S. Those same names were forced to collusions they don't even know about too with Saudis. And Wethersfield police did that too. Attached me to fake conversations with a Mendez. I never had a word of conversation with him in my life. James Comey is involved with sequence shifts with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, a former standing chairperson on the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. He uses the right to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. They have collusions with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, not the way they're pretending to be with the military. Like an Oliveri family has sought me out to make confessions. It's relevant now too. With Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, they have federal evidence crimes with sexual and medical offenders of kids. Eric Oliveri and Craig Oliveri, and they have collusions with Joshua Stryker at Trinity College, with Dean Alford, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and people from New Mexico and people from the states near Maine, involved with people from Canada and Mexico and Saudi Arabia, and all these countries connected, and they were forced to collusion/S with the FBI director and people like the one and only Ron, and like a Joshua Julian, and people with the name Ray Cololo, also recorded on with digital crimes and wedding forensics, also with the collusions with a Bob Chase, with a Phil Cololo, further with the principal upskirt nature, and more medical and sexual offenders of kids. There's a Leahy family, too, that faked conversations with me to other people through the mail. I can't get a response from them because they're little cowards. And a bunch of people make confessions about what they're saying. They're planting evidences with the FBI, too, and foreign and domestic military. A Leahy family had roles with the World Trade Center attack and the people with these Wethersfield police faking transcripts, intercities, Hartford police departments, retired families, and like an O'Brien family is increasingly collusions. A Casper family too sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has collusions with the intelligence next to the state capitol, people associated with the state capitol, also with other countries, and with some interreligious nutbags, with some Jewish-themed mayor involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with a Czech Casper and a Casper family that was brought up to me by one of these guys who made a threat to me, who was involved with preventing me from speaking with people at Hartford Hospital, got involved with my conversation. Then another guy jumped in. In other words, I never got to speak with that guy. Another guy did put federal evidence crimes with my signature and threatening me if I didn't sign something, they were going to just tie me down and stab me with a needle. And I didn't respond at all. I didn't even move. I was sitting there. I was waiting for the kid who was going to stay. He was going to stab me in the eyes. Plus, these are people involved with the Wethersfield police phones and their roles with Afghanistan, with a Smith family and a Cololo family, and this Aiello family and others next to Trinity College, like with the DeMoro family. I don't think I've ever seen a DeMoro family there, but they're tied to people that brought them up with their confessions. Fred Grisey is also involved with the Maiano family with that. And with their roles with a bunch of people at Harvard Hospital, have predicate acts at Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University, and collusions with an untimely death at Trinity College. And this Joshua Stryker with an officer using the name Darth Vader, who's involved with wire crimes with the FBI, and the difference of the police forms families that work with the little police forms as on campuses, or the ones that have now off the campus too. And the difference of that is exploited. These are people too, through administrations exploiting the Democratic themes and Republican themes. It's just relative to where and how it's discernible. They have still at campuses A through Z, a breaching method read and appreciated, what America's founders left declassified for us. And the breaching method shows, it showed that it appreciated that person. It showed that everyone had to be morons and blame other things, others themselves. In other words, if you're pretending that you believe that America was founded to go against the king, while you know that slavery was entrenched in northern colonies and southern, you can't defend that and afford to discern how and why that slavery was left entrenched. There was a breaching method entrenched. It was too hard to get out. And that's really why the suburbs have stayed the way they are. With nature too, demonstrating. Even the suburbs can't even grow enough food for everyone. No. Let alone the cities. See, the nature debate contains quality aspects in nature that are criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, wrong. I'm not a lawyer, thank God. The bar itself, we're gonna take care of them. They have audacity to group people. They have groupthink. They have lawyers worse than criminally incompetent with the World Trade Center attack, and with their roles with going to fishing. They know the information's wrong, but they pretend other, and then they go fishing. And then, in other words, because then but they're not going to get away with it, because we're going to force them. We're going to get through they need to offensively pretend to believe things like America was founded to go against kings. Meanwhile, while they're pretending they don't realize, and their tactically delusions raw too, relative to this. How there was breaching method there with slavery entrenched. You explain that and you blame it on the breaching method. You don't blame it on our founders. Even the ones we're not sure if they were our founders, like George Washington. There's a difference. Our founders told us the only founder they had security to let us know the name of was James Madison. They were using his plan. Vaccines. He didn't even have free speech once he was the president. You don't vote on slavery if you have free speech. If you're on a bridged constitution, you guys came through sick campuses, and we're gonna heal them now. Attend.